Hey guys, Unblessed here with a new review. This time we have The Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 4. And this episode is actually titled Killer Within. So, this episode was amazing. It was literally ridiculous. This episode was really in itself was basically season finale quality. Like, that's how good this episode was. And so many amazing, big events happened in this episode that will change the rest of this show forever, really. So before I really get into it, I just want to let you guys know that this review does contain spoilers. So if you don't know what happens and you don't want this video to spoil it for you, I suggest going and watching the video and coming back, and we can share our thoughts on this episode and talk about it. So, two really big events happen, and they really, I did not see it coming at all. Really, no one could have predicted what was gonna happen, and really I just can't believe it really happened. I'm still kind of just dazed and confused of what happened, because I really can't wrap my head around it. I really thought it never would. But anyway, before we get to actually what those big events were, let's just start off right from the top and go down in this episode. So basically this episode starts off there's a scene before the theme song of this mysterious person, and he's he has a deer, and he hangs it up and distracts some walkers, runs through, cuts a lock on a door, and he just runs around. You don't really know who he is, though. So that was kind of weird, but we later find out who it was. But then we go in, and we see actually to the prison. We're in the prison right now. Glenn are actually talking about, we should start burning the bodies and stuff like this. And it was really kind of cool, because it was really the first time we really seen them talking about burning the bodies, which they do all the time in the Walking Dead comic. So it was really cool to kind of see that come to life from the pages. But then we go to Oscar and Alex, the two prisoners that are still alive from last week's episode. And they're actually talking to Rick about kind of just moving in with them and joining the group. They don't feel comfortable in their cells, things, they're all their friends' dead bodies everywhere. They don't want to live like that. They want to go with Rick and his group. And Rick kind of thinks about it and we don't want them in here. They could just turn around and kill us, really. So they don't want to take that chance. They've worked so hard to get to where they are right now, and they've lost so many people already that, why would they take the chance and trust these two people that they don't know and just let them live with them? So I agree with that. And Rick kind of looks at Daryl, and Daryl kind of just gives him a quick no, and that seals the deal, no. But then T-Dog, he kind of speaks up, and he kind of wants them to. He wants to give them the chance. And Daryl kind of agrees, they're not bad people, but really, he still doesn't want to take the chance. So, that I agree with what they're saying, and it's based on everything, morals and everything. They're right. So then we go straight to Woodbury, and we see Michonne. And she's actually walking around Woodbury. Looks really suspicious, and she's it almost looks like she's looking for something wrong, a reason for them to leave right away, her and Andrea, really. So she sees all this stuff they got from last week's pilot's crew members that the governor shot down, and she looks at the vehicles and she notices bullet holes in the vehicles. So she's really suspicious about this, and she has the right to be, and she kind of figures out what happened, basically. And the governor kind of goes up to her, and he starts kind of oh yeah, we did everything we couldn't do, we couldn't save him, blah blah blah. But Michonne knows what's up, she's Michonne. Gotta give her some props, man. But so yeah, she basically knows, and she wants to leave right away. She knows that something's up. She knows the governor's not in his right mind, even though it doesn't appear that he is. But she knows. So she and Andrea want to leave right away, although Andrea doesn't really want to leave at all. So then we switch back to the prison, and Hershel's actually, looks really good. It almost looks like he's back to normal almost, and so he's laying in his little bunk bed thing. And Lori and Carl come, and they actually have crutches, so they found crutches for him. So he gets up and he starts walking around. They go for a little stroll, which is really cool to see Herschel back up and at him. It was really upsetting when he got bit 2 episodes ago, if I'm not mistaken. And, I really felt bad for him. So just to see him back up on his feet really brought a smile to my face. You really bond with these characters, if you know what I mean. But, so yeah, it was really cool to see him back up and at him. But Then again, it goes back to Woodbury, and Michonne and Andrea are planning to leave Woodbury, and their plan is to leave Woodbury and find a boat or an island near the coast, because that's what their best bet. That's what they think. If they could find an island, that would be amazing, because there wouldn't be any zombies on it. I'm sure the disease is airborne, so it probably would be on the island. But if they could find like a deserted island with no humans, that would be amazing, because then they'd be home free. But, Andrea's kind of questioning Michonne, because, like, what are we going to do? Just go there, live until we get old? Like, there's really no point in living if that's the case. But Michonne kind of disagrees. She wants to get away from Woodbury at any cost. So then we switch back to the prison, and they've given Axel and Oscar like a week's food at one time. So Glenn comes over, gives them like a box of food. So obviously they're in control of the food, and they give them like a box full of food for a week. So that was kind of cool to see how they're kind of living. And Axel's trying to like kind of suck up, try to get Rick and his group on their good side to let him in. But Oscar's like, come on, Axel, just shut up. Like, yeah, and it's kind of funny seeing that too. So then they're talking about burning the walkers, and I thought this was really cool that they brought this up, because they never really brought this up in the comic. They're saying that burning the walkers might attract more walkers, so maybe they should bury the walkers. But Rick points out that if we're gonna plant crops in zombie-infested soil, that's not good either. So, that's a cool idea that they brought up in the show that wasn't in the comic. So, they're thinking out of the box here. I really like that. And so then after that, so Herschel goes out for the stroll, like I said, and he's having a good time. He has a smile on his face, and a bunch of walkers just start running everywhere in the prison. And so Herschel's walking with Carl, Lori, and them, and so they're just walking, and then tons of walkers just show up out of nowhere. So they don't know what's going on, and Rick and Daryl are kind of on the other side of the fence, so they have to get through, unlock the door, so they're scrambling. Carl's got his gun, he's shooting up some zombies, Lori's shooting up some zombies, they're all shooting up some zombies. But, Rick's just running toward them, trying to protect them. Rick's all about protecting his family, so, But, so then, they kind of run off and get separated, so T-Dog and Carol go into the prison, and they kind of running through all the hallways and stuff. Same with Carl, Lori, and Maggie. They run away too in the hallways of the prison, so they kind of split up. And then Herschel and his daughter are together, and they kind of just lock themselves in like a little thing onto the side of the prison, just like a kind of like a fenced-in little area, so they're safe. And we actually see Herschel take out a walker with his crutches. I thought that was really cool, and it just really proves that Herschel's back up and he's fine. So that was really cool that we could see Herschel take out a zombie. And so again, the gate was left open, so someone opened up the gate and all these zombies got through. So T-Dog tries to close the gate back up, and unfortunately, here's one of the big things that happens. A walker comes up behind him and bites him right on the shoulder. And man, T-Dog got bit. When that happened, I was so shocked. Because, T-Dog is not a really huge character, but I think he's essential to the group. Because, he's in the background, but he has important parts. Like, even in this episode, he stood up right at the beginning saying he wanted the two prisoners to join their group. Like, he plays an important part, and it was really sad to see him get bit, and I really felt for him. Less than I did for Herschel. Like, I care more about Herschel, but, man, I still love T-Dog. T-Dog's back, So I was really sad to see him get bitten, but that kind of sucks. Then we go back to Woodbury, and Andrea shows Merle. So Andrea shows Merle where the barn was located on a map. So why would she show him where the barn was? They really say that she's helping Merle because she feels like if her sister was still alive and Merle knew where she was, he would do the same thing, and she would want that for herself. So she's kind of helping Merle out in that sense, like do unto others what you would do unto yourself. So that's kind of okay, I guess, but I think it's kind of the bad move. But we'll see how that leads us, because now Merle wants to go find his brother, Daryl. So he's kind of asking the governor to let him go and look for him. But again, in a little bit, we'll see how that turns out. So we go back to the prison, and there's some really cool kill scenes and like headshots with Glenn and Daryl, and they have like knives and they like chop off the zombie's head right in half. It was really cool. Daryl jumps up, stabs the zombie right in the head. Really cool scenes in this episode, and there's so much stuff going on in this episode, and I think that's what made it really cool. So they find out that someone actually cut the gate open with an axe or like, tool cutters or whatever. So someone did it on purpose. And again, we go back to the beginning and we see this guy cut open a gate. We don't see who it was though. We can basically just see his feet. So, and again, we know that someone did this. So then the alarm goes off, and so the alarm's buzzing. All these zombies are coming. It causes this huge ruckus. All these zombies are swarming everywhere now. So they just shoot the alarm boxes, the ones that they can, and it kind of tones it down a little, but still, they're going off crazy. So now they're going to go into the prison, look for everyone that got separated, and then look for the generator room to shut off the power. And of course, they bring Axel and they bring Oscar. They don't bring Axel, they bring Oscar because he knows his way around the prison, so he can bring him to the generator room to turn it off. So that's all cool with that. So then they blame Axel and Oscar for doing this because really, who else could it be? So that's what they have in their mind. So then we go back to T-Dog, and T-Dog is helping Carol out of the prison, and so they're like going through the hallways, and T-Dog's literally dying, and he's really not even thinking about himself. He's just thinking about helping Carol. So that was really cool, kind of see him like in a heroic way, kind of like, give up his, like put up his life just for Carol, just helping her out of the hallway. Really, when he's dying, he's the one that should need help. But anyway, so then we go to Carl, Maggie, and Lori, and they're in the hallway, and Lori's like thinking that the baby is coming now. So she's starting to feel some pain. It's like, the baby's coming. I need to deliver it right now. So that was a big shock too. What are the odds that when all this stuff is happening, Lori would be having to give birth? The odds aren't very good at all. All this stuff, the alarm goes off, the gates gets cut open. Like, the person that did this, did they know Lori was going to give birth? Because they timed it perfectly. So that was kind of like stupid in a way, but it still worked. Because if you're not overthinking it, it works out. You know what I mean? So then, what's his name? Carl, Maggie, and Lori, they run out into a little, like, they run into some walkers. So they turn back and they run into this room, close the door, and so Maggie starts helping Lori prepare to give birth. So we'll see what that happens later. We'll talk about that later. But for now, we switch back to Woodbury, and the governor is actually golfing on top of a bus, and he's like hitting zombies in the head. And it was just such an awkward, like, weird scene, but it really showed another personality of the governor, like this. This guy's in control. He's doing nothing at all, but, like, it's kind of a weird scene. So then Merle comes, and he kind of asks him, I want to find Daryl. Like, can I go and find him? Like, can I be excused from here? Like, do you really need me here? And, like, the governor says right away, like, no, we need you here or else it'll fall apart. Which, that's probably a lie, because I don't know why Merle is so important to him, but he's probably just trying to make him feel important. But then the governor says, if you get more solid information on where he is, I'll go myself with you to go find him. So I don't know how he'd get more information, but if he does, that'd be pretty cool to see him and the governor go after Daryl, trying to find him. Now back to the prison. So everyone's separated. They're trying to look for the generator. Everything's in chaos. So it's up to Maggie and Carl to deliver the baby. So Lori's on the floor. She's pushing, giving birth like in the movies, and it really has no choice. So, I really feel bad for Carl in this episode, too, because he has to, like, see all this stuff with his mother giving birth and stuff, and he basically has to help. So, really, that in itself is an episode, but, by itself, just all that stuff. Then we go back to T-Dog and Carol. So, they're running through the hallway, and they run into a bunch of zombies, and Carol's all out of ammo for a gun, so T-Dog just mans up. He runs into the walkers, and just basically just sacrifices himself to let Carol go through and out. And man, it was such a heroic event, and T-Dog just gave up his life for Carol just to save her. And like a tear shed down my face, down my cheek, and I looked up to the sky and said, thank you, T-Dog, thank you. No, I'm just joking, but man, it was such a great moment just to see T-Dog just in like the most heroic state and just save Carol out of the goodness of his heart. Even though he knew like he was gonna die, but still like you know he didn't have to go through all that pain for like just to save Carol. Like he did that just for Carol. So that was a really cool event. So that was one of the biggest things in this episode. But there's something, if you don't even believe that, there's something that tops this. I know. In this episode, something tops that event. So, you know, we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, so when T-Dog actually like runs to the walkers, you see actually the walker bite off a part of his neck, and it was like so gross. But you know, this TV show is known for that gross stuff. But anyway, now back to Woodbury. The governor tells Andrea that his wife died in a car accident 8 months before the breakout, and it's just him and his daughter left. So again, that, you know, his daughter's hinted again. So I can't wait to see his daughter in this thing. And if you don't know, his daughter plays kind of a significant role in the comics. So you'll find out soon enough, guys. You'll find out soon enough. He actually also tells Andrea his real name. So the governor tells Andrea that his name is Philip, which it is in the comics too. So that's pretty cool. And I think that really the governor's just trying to make Andrea, she's kind of just persuading her maybe just so she can stay. And I guess it really works, as we find out later. But for now, we switch back to the prison. And Rick gets to the generator room. And he shuts down one of the generators. And then all of a sudden, our little friend from the previous episode, Andrew, which is the prisoner from 2 episodes ago, the one that Rick kind of just closed the door on, the one he was actually chasing him. His name's Andrew, the one where he kind of just closed the door on him and just said, run. So he comes back. He has actually an axe and tries to kill Rick right away, but Rick dodges it, and there's this like awesome fight scene between Rick and Andrew, and you know, all the gun goes flying and all this stuff happens, and Daryl is actually handling the walkers at the door that are trying to pour in. So Daryl's busy, so kind of Rick is all on his own. But then, as I did, you kind of forget about Oscar that was with him, and Oscar like throws like a barrel, like a tin like barrel thing at Andrew, so it kind of just hits him and he stumbles backward and falls, and the gun's on the floor, so Oscar picks it up and he points it at Rick and Andrew. So he basically has a tough choice here, Oscar, to either kill Andrew or Rick. And really, you think that he's just going to shoot Rick because Rick has treated him bad so far, and Andrew is his fellow prison like mate. So really, what are the odds that he'd shoot Andrew? But he does shoot Andrew, and then he just hands the gun back to Rick, and Rick kind of just gives him just looks at him and just like, yes, okay. Like he just gives him that stare, like, you know what, you proved yourself, kind of. So I'm assuming he's gonna be joining the group soon, him and Axel. But why didn't he shoot Rick? Well, if he shot Rick, Daryl is right there, and what would the rest of the group do to him, really? So that's probably the determining factor why he didn't shoot Rick. But I think he's just trying to gain his trust, really. But so a good part for Oscar there. He had a really significant part in this episode too, and like really that moment just by itself would be an episode plot by itself. So that's really cool. On top of T-Dog dying, and on top of Lori trying to give birth here, you know, this is what makes this episode so crazy. So then we go back to Carl, Maggie, and Lori, and so something's wrong with Lori and the baby, and she's not giving birth to the baby right. So they have to resort to giving Lori a C-section, which Carol is the one that was practicing zombies to do this, and she's not there, so it's up to Maggie to do it. So, you know, it's a tough thing that you got to do here, and really, Maggie's not that trained in doing this. Like, she hasn't given birth to any other babies, like, she hasn't delivered any babies, so it's going to be a hard thing to do. But then we switch back to Woodbury, and Andrea is talking to Michonne, and this is, like, literally, like a 5-second clip, like, seriously, and it's just Andrea saying to Michonne that she wants to stay longer, and she doesn't want to leave. So again, the governor kind of subconsciously persuaded her to, because he's acting so nice to her, saying all this stuff, you know, blah blah blah, but we know he's a sick, demented guy, we all know that. But anyway, so we switch back to the prison, and Lori basically says, you know what, Maggie, do the C-section, it's gonna kill me, but to deliver the baby, I just want the baby to be delivered, I don't care about myself, like, the baby is all that matters. So she basically says her goodbyes to Carl and tells him to be strong and you have to be a leader and everything and all this stuff. And it's like really emotional part of this episode. And there's like that sad music dun, 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 playing in the background, and Carl hugs Lori for the last time, says his goodbyes, and then they have to perform the C-section, and Maggie does it, and they show Maggie cutting into her, which is disgusting, but the baby's born, and it actually shows the baby. And the weird thing is that some scenes with the baby is fake, like it's like a prop, and then like I think one scene was a real baby. I might be mistaken, but it looked like a real baby just for one scene. But the prop baby actually looks really cool. Like, it actually looks real, which is disgusting in itself, but it looks like a real, like, newborn baby, which is ridiculous how good it looks and how real life it looks. So then Lori's basically dead on the floor, and Maggie says to Carl, like, what are we going to do now? She's going to turn. And Carl takes out his gun and says, I have to do it, it's my mother. And again, this is the comic Carl coming out. In the comic, Carl's just like this really like hardened kid that is really not a kid anymore. So, he takes out his gun and he's about to shoot his mother right in the head to prevent her from turning into a zombie. And we have this flashback of when he was sitting on top of the barn with Rick in season 2, and Rick tells him, like, no more kid stuff. Like, I'm gonna die, your mother's gonna die, everyone's gonna die. And, he really took that to heart. And you hear the gunshot, but you see Maggie. So we're not even 100% sure that Carl shot his mom, but he pretty much did. Like, you have to know that he did. Like, why else would he shoot? Just to make Maggie think that he shot her? Like, it doesn't really make sense that he wouldn't. So, that was a really sad moment. Really sad to see Lori go. But, she was annoying, so it's okay. No, I'm just joking. Another really emotional moment in this episode. So if it wasn't enough that T-Dog died, now we have Lori's dead. And we have this big storyline with Andrew coming back and trying to kill Rick. So this episode was ridiculous. And on top of that, we have Michonne and Andrea at Woodbury. Like, small stuff, but still. This episode's jam-packed with stuff. So Lori gives birth, and the baby looks healthy enough, so that's good. So Maggie's just carrying her around, and Rick, Daryl, and Oscar are going through the hallways of the prison still, and they actually come across T-Dog's dead body, which is, so they kind of figure that out, and they kind of assume that Carol's dead too, because they find like this head, like bandana thing she was wearing throughout the whole episode, so they just assume that she's dead too. So she's unaccounted for at the end of this episode, so that's, I don't know what they're going to go with that. So then at the end of this episode, Maggie and Carl show up with the baby for Rick. So they're basically all reunited now, like the surviving people. So Herschel's daughter, Maggie, Carl, the baby, Rick, Daryl, and Oscar. They're all like basically together now, and Rick sees the baby, and he kind of just stares at it, and he basically realizes that Lori's dead because he's not with her, and he breaks out in crying, just collapses to the floor. And like, this is one of the first times, basically the first time, that I've genuinely felt like really sad. Like, I felt so bad for Rick. Like, you could just see it in his face. Like, the acting was like ridiculously good in the scene, and like in other TV shows and movies, I've felt bad, like when a character dies, like I feel bad, but not to this extent. Like, it was really, really like an emotional scene. Like, I've never felt that like bad for a character ever. So, that's another thing that makes this episode so good. Like, it's just all this stuff happened all together, all at once, that it was really a season finale in itself, this episode. Like I said at the beginning, it was ridiculous. So if you haven't seen this episode, go watch it. It has to be the best episode of the series so far, if not the best, in the top 2 or 3, really. Because really, what tops this episode? Nothing. So many events, so many cool things. So thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned for more news and reviews. If you haven't already, subscribe. And follow me on Twitter at UnblessedData. So I'll talk to you guys later, and thanks for watching, and see you later.